Hello and welcome back to our YouTube channel. Well, it is 1st July 2025 and it would be our 19th lecture of Indian polity. Before we'll start our discussion, I would like to give the brief introduction about our initiative which we started from 2nd June. So let's see what this initiative is about. Every day on our YouTube channel we upload two videos. One in the morning session in which we discuss the daily news analysis. What we do here, we take up the most important articles from the newspapers, we break them down into the simplest language possible, and we derive some important points which could be relevant for your prelims preparation or your mains preparation. So this is what we do in our first video, and we derive some model questions with respect to your prelims as well as with respect to your mains. So this is what we do in our first video. In the second video, which is this video, here we discuss the your static syllabus, and we started with Indian polity, and we had promised you that by the month of January 2026 we are going to complete your full syllabus, whether it would be related to your prelims preparation or related to your mains preparation. Every subject would be delivered here. We will discuss every topic and we will try to cover your syllabus fully, but there is an exception. We are not going to cover your optional subjects. That is only exception here. And also, as we are delivering these lectures here, at the same time we are making your notes. We can say we are making research papers for you guys with respect to Indian polity. Right now we are making the research paper with respect to Indian polity, or we can say we are making the notes for Indian polity. These notes would be very much different from the conventional books which you read, because we had contained every concept and we had discussed that concept in a very detailed way. We had discussed that when you will read our notes, you will feel that book is talking to you. We had given the examples to the best way possible, and at the same time, after every concept which is important, whether if it is important for your prelims preparation, we had given the prelims model questions, and if it is important for your mains preparation, we had given your model model questions for your preparation. So in this way, this book which we are preparing right now, it would be different from your conventional books. If you want to get access of this book, you would just have to mail us, and for that you would have to pay only 200 rupees per book. For example, right now we are discussing Indian polity. For Indian polity notes, you would have to pay 200 rupees and you will get access of those notes, and these notes would be available once we will complete the full syllabus of Indian polity here. So this is about the initiative. If you want to be part of this, please do subscribe the channel. It is totally free. The aim is to deliver the most important information. Aim is to deliver the coaching in which you spend lakhs in other different coaching institutes. Here it is delivered totally free. If you like this initiative, please do subscribe the channel. Let us be the part of your journey, and let's see what will happen. And also, if you had not watched our earlier videos, so please go to the comment section. We would pin the site of the playlist where you can get access of all those lectures which we every day deliver here. Now, without any delay, let's start our discussion. From 2nd June, we are discussing now Indian polity. We started with the basics, what is constitution. Then we discussed part 1 of the Indian constitution, then citizenship. Then we discussed the fundamental rights, we discussed JPSCs, we discussed the fundamental duties, we discussed every concept related to that. And from last 2 days we are and then we discussed the union executive, we discussed the president in detail, we discussed vice president, we discussed the council of ministers and attorney general of India. With respect to all these offices, we discussed everything what is required for you to clear the exam. Now, from last 2 days, we are discussing Union Legislature. In Union Legislature, we discussed what is the Parliament, what does Parliament contain. It contains President, it contains, Lok Sabha, and it contains Raj Sabha. President, we had discussed. I told you when we were discussing the President, I told you it is that topic which we will cover everywhere while we are discussing the Indian polity. Right now we are discussing the Parliament, we are discussing the Lok Sabha. There we have to discuss the President, his powers. We will discuss Raj Sabha. There we discussed Raj Sabha, we discussed Lok Sabha. There we discussed the powers of the President. And after discussing all these things, then we discussed what is the structure of the Lok Sabha. We discussed what is the structure of the Rajya Sabha. We discussed what are the qualifications required for a person to be in the Lok Sabha, what are the qualifications for a person to be in Rajya Sabha, and we discussed who is going to chair Lok Sabha, who is going to chair Rajya Sabha, everything we discussed with that. And then also we discussed with disqualifications given in the constitution, and with the rest, with that we also discussed what the office of the prophet. After that we discussed what will happen bills once the once the Lok Sabha is dissolved. We discussed various terms, various parameters with respect to Lok Sabha. We discussed prorogation. We discussed dissolution. We discussed all this stuff with respect to it, and we saw what will happen to the bills if if the Lok Sabha dissolves. What are the three types of bills which will stay there? We discussed all that in detail. If you want to have a look of that, please go to the earlier lectures. I will pin the comment where the playlist would be given in the comment section, and please do watch it. And from today, we will see the procedure in the parliament. If I will make a heading for that, it would be procedure in parliament. What will happen in the parliament when suppose now the elections had happened, the president, the Lok Sabha is there, Rajya Sabha is there, and they won't pass any bill. What will happen to that bill? How it is passed? What is the structure there? How it is done? We will discuss all that. For that, first let us start with the president's. First we will start with president's address. What we will start with? President's address. A prelims question may come in your exam. Minimum how many times a president has to give the address, has to call upon both the houses. Generally it is done twice. One, generally in a year, normally it would be done once minimum. That would be the first session of the year. It is important, it is mandatory, first session of the year. And if there is new Lok Sabha, then it would be 2 times. That is after general elections. When there are general elections, then there would be the presidential address. President's address would be there. Under this president's address, what president would talk about? He would talk about the achievements of the government. He would talk about the priorities of the upcoming government, and he would talk about what would be the different policies, what they are going to do, what is their vision for the 5 years, what is their vision for this year. This would be discussed. If it is the same government, then they will discuss, then the president will highlight what the government has achieved. For example, in 2019 election, it was BJP's government. In 2024, BJP also again won. So then what will president do? He will highlight the issues, he will highlight the achievements of the previous government. He will highlight how we dealt, how our foreign policy was. He will highlight what were the different schemes which we brought in and how successful they were. And he will also highlight what we are going to achieve in near future. What is the motto of this house? So this is what president's address would be. He would address both. First, remember a few points about it. These are very much factual. As I had told you, with respect to the union legislature, with respect to union executive, with respect to the fundamental duties, these topics are very much specific to your prelims preparation. If there is any conceptual thing, that we will discuss, but here it is more specific to your prelims preparation, because most of the questions in prelims exams are from these parts. So here, what do you need to know about the president's address? It is done twice. One, when the new general assembly, when the new general elections, after the general elections, it would be done. And the second, when it would be when he will address, it would be the first session of the year. So these are the two times the president addresses. And what his speech would be? His speech, he would talk about he would talk about the achievements of the government. He would talk about the priorities. He would talk about the policy matters. Now the question is here: what is this president's address? Is it solely prepared by him, or somebody else prepares it for him? This is the real question. So the answer to it is the cabinet. It is the cabinet who prepares. It is the cabinet who prepares the president's address for him, and he reads it line by line. What the cabinet prepares for him, he reads it line by line. It is not something he prepares it by himself. If the cabinet will tell him to address the Lok Sabha, he will address the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. He will give his president's address. He would read line by line what the cabinet has, address, what the cabinet has mentioned in that president's address. What the cabinet has mentioned, he will read everything. So this is the president's address. It is the cabinet who prepares it for him. Similarly, as I told you, with respect to these important topics, for example, union legislature, union executive, it is what goes with the parliament, same goes with the state legislative assemblies. So here in the state legislative assemblies, it would be the governor who will give his address, and it would be prepared by the cabinet. Now, in the state legislative assemblies, we often see the mismatch with the governor and the cabinet. Why? Because governor may be from the states. They might be from the different political parties who are not ruling at the center. Then the situation gets different. The cabinet, state cabinet, they will address something and the governor won't read it line by line. There is often mismatch, especially with respect to Tamil Nadu. It was highlighted last year in the newspapers also that there was a tussle between Tamil Nadu governor and the legislative assembly there, that the governor did not read what they had prepared for him. They would often ignore, but this time they responded to that. And after this address is delivered, once this address is delivered, as it is delivered by whom? It is delivered by, here in the center, it is delivered by president, but it is framed, it is written by whom? It is written by cabinet. And similarly, here it is in the state legislative assembly, it is delivered by governor, but framed by whom? It is delivered by the state legislative assembly. Now, after it is done, after the president's address is done, now there would be the discussion in the Lok Sabha. There would be the discussion in the Lok Sabha. Once then it would be passed by the simple majority. If it passes by the simple majority, then it will go to the Rajya Sabha. Now the question may come, there would be discussion. Then thanks of motion would be adopted. Once there would be the discussion, then thanks of motion would be adopted. Motion of thanks would be adopted by the simple majority. Now let's suppose if there is the president gave his address, he read out the statements, and once it went to the voting, suppose in Rajya Sabha, in Lok Sabha, it did not pass by the simple majority. It did not pass by the simple majority. It got defeated in the Lok Sabha. There were many, all the MPs, most of the MPs, they did not like this address. They criticized it and they did not vote for it. So what will happen? In this case, what will happen? The cabinet will have to prove that they will have to prove their majority in the house. The cabinet will have to prove their majority in the house. There would be, if the motion of thanks is defeated in Lok Sabha, then the cabinet will have to prove the motion. The cabinet will, it leads to the censure of cabinet. This will lead to the censure of cabinet if it is defeated in the Lok Sabha. But once it is passed by the simple majority in the Lok Sabha, it will go to Rajya Sabha. Suppose if in the Rajya Sabha it is defeated, what will happen? Nothing will happen, because the Lok Sabha, the MPs, the cabinet, they are much responsible to the Lok Sabha. They are much responsible to the Lok Sabha. So it doesn't matter whether it does pass in the Rajya Sabha or not. Usually Rajya Sabha accepts it. So this is about the president's address. And also with respect to what? With respect to the governor's address, why there is tussle? Because they are from the opposition political parties. It is not what the governor reads or what the president reads. It is what the discussion is usually on what the cabinet has made him to read, or what they had delivered. Maybe president may skip few words, or the governor may skip few words, but the discussion would be on, it is up to the cabinet. Then the discussion would be on what the cabinet, what they had written. The discussion would be on that. The motion of thanks would be on that. If the motion of thanks gets defeated in the Lok Sabha, then the cabinet, it will lead to the censure of the cabinet, and they will have to prove the majority. So confidence motion would be introduced. So this is what this is about the president's address. Once president gives his address, now the procedure in the parliament will start. Here, different bills will be introduced. Maybe ordinary bill, maybe a money bill, for example budget, maybe financial bill, Maybe something, they want to amend the constitution. Now let's start, to understand this, let's first understand what are these types of bills, starting with the ordinary bill. Let's try to understand what are these types of bills. Let's start with the ordinary bill. Let us see what are its features. How does it pass in the Lok Sabha? If it fails to pass in the Rajya Sabha, what will happen? Will there be the joint sitting? Is it necessary? All we will discuss here. Starting with the ordinary bill. Starting with the ordinary bill. Ordinary bill. So about ordinary bill, what is an ordinary bill? Anything. Ordinary bill, remember that anything except money bill, any bill except money bill, financial bill, or constitutional amendment bill is ordinary bill. Anything except except money bill or financial bill or the constitutional amendment bill is ordinary bill. Can I cite an example? For example, tomorrow, suppose there is there is an MP in the Lok Sabha. He is very much pro homosexuality and he wants to introduce a bill. That the homosexual marriages should be legal in India. So he will introduce it. This bill, it should pass by the simple majority in the Lok Sabha and it should pass by the simple majority in the Rajya Sabha. So this bill would be the ordinary bill. Now let's look at where it can be introduced. This ordinary bill, it can be introduced either in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha. There is no compulsion that it should be introduced in Lok Sabha only, it should be introduced in Rajya Sabha only. There is no such compulsion. Now the another question should be, who can introduce the ordinary bill? Anyone. It can be introduced by the government as well as by the private member. It can be introduced by anyone. Government can introduce it. It can be introduced by the private member as well. So the another question, do we need president's approval prior to bringing this bill? No, there is no need for the president's approval approval of the it does not need prior approval of the president. This does not need prior approval of the president. If you want to introduce it, then once it will be passed in the Lok Sabha, then Rajya Sabha, then we will get the approval of the president. But here, with respect to ordinary bill, there is no need for the prior approval of the president. No need for the prior approval of president. And while it can be introduced, it is introduced either in Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. And also, which majority is required for it to pass? It requires simple majority. These are few important facts which may be relevant for your prelims preparation. So please note them down. Now let's see what will happen to this bill if it is passed in the Lok Sabha and if it is not passed in the Rajya Sabha. Let us see. Let us try to find out. Let us make a little pictorial representation of it so that it will fit in your mind. Suppose this is Lok Sabha, this is Rajya Sabha. With respect to ordinary bill, do we need the president's assent, prior approval of the president? No, this is not needed. Suppose it passes in the Lok Sabha and passes in the Rajya Sabha, then it is a smooth transaction and it is voted upon and it would become an act. Whatever was the necessity of the bill, it will become that. Now it passes in the Lok Sabha. It was introduced in the Lok Sabha, passes in the Lok Sabha, does not pass in the Rajya Sabha. It will lead to the deadlock. If it passes in the Lok Sabha, does not, the Rajya Sabha amends it, and they pass back it to the Lok Sabha, and Lok Sabha does not accept the amendments, it will also lead to a deadlock within 6 months. Then if Lok Sabha passes it, Rajya Sabha does not act on it, what it will lead to? It will also lead to deadlock within 6 months. And the president, here you have to note down this point, the president may call for joint sitting. The president may call for the joint sitting. Now the question may come to your mind, is it necessary that if any ordinary bill, if there is a deadlock with respect to any ordinary bill, that will go to the joint sitting. No, it is not necessary. It is the president's approval. If he wants to bring this for the joint sitting, he can bring it. Otherwise, it is not mandatory. It is not necessary that every bill should go to the joint sitting. So this is about the ordinary bill. Now, as we had approached the joint sitting, as we are discussing now joint sitting, let's try to find out few important facts about the joint sitting which can be very much relevant for your preparation. Let us see who is going to preside in the joint sitting, what majority is required for a bill to pass in the joint sitting. Let's discuss that. Joint sitting. About joint sitting, it is passed if any bill goes to the joint sitting. If there is a deadlock between Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, the bill will go to the joint sitting, and there it is passed by the simple majority. This is one of the criticism to the Rajya Sabha basically here, that in the joint sitting, Rajya Sabha is very much irrelevant because of the numerical majority the Lok Sabha enjoys there. So this is something, but it is not usually, it will not happen with respect to every bill. Till date, as we had already mentioned, that only 3 joint sittings had been there. Only 3 joint sittings had been there. So who will make the rules for the joint sitting? If there is, if the business is in the Lok Sabha, it is the Lok Sabha who will make the rules of the business. In the Rajya Sabha, it is the Rajya Sabha. Here in the joint sitting, it is the president who will make the rules in the joint sitting, and he will take the advice from whom, he will consult whom. He will consult for this speaker and the chairman. He will consult this to the speaker and the chairman. Now the real question is, who will preside? It is the speaker who will preside. It is the speaker. He presides over the joint sitting. Suppose if speaker is absent, then who would preside? It is deputy speaker. If deputy speaker is also absent, then who would preside? It is deputy chairman. If deputy chairman is absent, then who will preside? They will choose one in the joint sitting. So this is the, in this way they are chosen. Either it would be, first it would be the speaker, then it would be the deputy speaker, then it would be the deputy chairman. Now a question may come to your mind, sir, what about chairman of the Rajya Sabha? Can he preside over this joint sitting? The answer to it is no. Why? Because the chairman, or we can say vice president of India, does not belong to the parliament. He does not belong to the parliament. He does not belong to Rajya Sabha, so he does not chair this. He does not chair the joint sitting. This is about the joint sitting. Now, as we were discussing the bills, we started with the ordinary bill. Now let's see, how does ordinary bill pass in the Lok Sabha? How does how the passage of the bills happen? What is the criteria for that? What are the different stages under which the bill has to go to get passed in the House? Let's try to understand that in the very simplest way possible. In Lok Sabha, we discussed about the business advisory committee. We saw that what is its role. It will decide at what time the bill will be introduced, what kind of bill will be introduced, who will introduce the bill. It is this business advisory committee who will decide over it. So suppose there is a member, a private member, he wants to introduce the bill. So for that, what he will do, introduction of the bill, he will ask for the permission, and then suppose for the private member it is Friday, he will ask for the permission, and on the Friday he will have to introduce the bill. At once he will introduce the bill, introduction of the bill. Once he will introduce the bill, he will have to give the reasons why he is introducing this bill. Are you wasting our time? What is the reason for that? What is the need for this bill? Why are you bringing this homosexuality bill? Do you really feel sad for them? Do you really want their lives to improve? So he will have to give is there really discrimination against them? So he will have to cite out these reasons, and this is given through the statement of object and reasoning. With the introduction, he will have to give the statement of object and reasoning. statement of object and reasoning. Once the bill is introduced, you know, after this, the bill will be published in the bill will be published in the government gazette. This bill will be published so that everybody in the house will read it. Sometimes it will not be even allowed to, they will not be even allowed to introduce it. For example, they will have to introduce some bill. They will tell them that on particular day you will introduce. At that day they will tell them on particular day, and in this way, till the house dissolves, or till the house is prorogued, this will continue, and they will not even be allowed to introduce the bill. So once this bill is introduced, it will go to the government gazette. Once it will go to the government gazette, in the government gazette, everybody will read it. They will see the provisions of the bill, what this is about. So this is what the first stage of the this is the first stage of the process of passage of the bill. This is called the first stage of the passage of the bill. This is first stage of the passage of the bill. Now, after this, the second stage will start. Second stage will start. In the second stage, it is the most important stage. This second stage is the most important stage. It is the most important stage. Why? Let me change the ink here. Because in this stage, this bill may be referred to a select committee. They will, if there is any discussion to make, they will refer it to the select committee. Or if there is any confusion with respect to the bill may be sent to the joint parliamentary committee, and they would recommend about the bill, what are the necessary changes which they should introduce. For example, the Waqf bill, it was sent to the joint parliamentary committee, and we will see what will happen with that. So in the joint parliamentary committee, the members would be from both Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. In the select committee, the members would be only from the Lok Sabha. So this way, here, this bill would be sent to the select committee or the joint parliamentary committee, or it may be sent for the public opinion. Let's take the opinion of the people, what they say, and they will give their recommendation, and this recommendation is not binding on the government. This determines the final stage of the bill, whether this bill will pass or not. After this, it will go to the third stage. This is the second stage. In the second stage, it will go to the different committees. They will recommend the changes if necessary. They would recommend the amendments if necessary. Then it will go to the third stage. It is in the third stage, voting will happen. In the third stage, voting will happen. Voting will take place from clause to clause. So this voting, is it through the voice vote? Always, is it through the voice vote, or is it through the division of votes? For example, in 2019, the BJP government have the absolute majority, have the majority in the house. So have the special majority in the house. So it was very much understood, if the government wants to bring in any bill, they would pass it. Then here the speaker, in order to delay the procedure, he will go for the voice votes. All those who are in favor, they will say yes. All those who are against, they will say no. So this is voice vote. Maybe for any bill, if it is introduced through the voice vote, and the opposition, they want to know how many people are against it, by which majority it is getting passed through it, the work which we had done in telling the people that it is not good. So they will ask the speaker that, sir, go for the division of votes. If any member asks the speaker to go for the division of votes, then it is necessary for the speaker to go for the division of votes, to go for the voting, where they will have to choose, where they will vote either yes and no, and they will know the exact numbers, how many are against it or how many are with it. If it gets passed through the voting, then it gets passed, then the president will give the assent, and finally it becomes the bill gets passed, and it becomes the act, whatever it has to be. Now, with this is with respect to the ordinary bill. With respect to ordinary bill, we discussed what kind of bill is. It is neither money bill, it is neither constitutional amendment bill, it is neither financial bill. Constitutional amendment bill we had already discussed. For that, go to my earlier lectures. Ordinary bill we discussed here, it can be introduced either in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha. It does not need prior approval of the president. It can be introduced by private member as well as the minister. Requires simple majority of both the houses. Now, the another type of bill is the money bill. Let's see what this money bill is about. Let's try to find that out. Now let's discuss the money bill. As we are discussing it, with respect to money bill, there are two important articles which are important for us to understand. One is Article 109 and Article 110 of the Indian Constitution. Article Article 109. What does Article 109 talk about? Article 109, it talks about the procedure of the money bill. It talks about the procedure of the money bill. It can be introduced, what are the various criteria important for the money bill. It can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha, introduced only in Lok Sabha. There too, with the for the president, for the money bill, the prior recommendation of the president is very much important, is necessary. Prior approval of the president, prior approval of the president, a prior approval of the president, and that too only in the Lok Sabha. Why not in Rajya Sabha? Why not in Rajya Sabha? Because of the nature of the Lok Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, they represent the states. The functioning of the Rajya Sabha is mostly related to the federal feature, but the Lok Sabha, it deals with the money, and the people. In Lok Sabha, MPs are directly elected by the people. So Lok Sabha will decide what will happen to the money. They will decide. They are Parliament or executive is responsible to the Lok Sabha. So that's why it should be introduced in the Lok Sabha itself. It should come out of the Lok Sabha. So who can introduce it? With respect to money bill, who can introduce it? Usually it is introduced by the government, but private member can also introduce it, because you need approval from the president, prior approval from the president, and majority of the times it is introduced by whom? It is introduced by by the government, and it requires simple majority to pass the bill. It requires simple majority for that. So what will happen with respect to money bill? What is the function of the Rajya Sabha? That we need to know. How does Rajya Sabha respond to it? That we will need to know. So with respect to the money bill, Rajya Sabha is very much inferior to the Lok Sabha. For example, if any bill, Lok Sabha passes the bill. Suppose with respect to money bill, Lok Sabha, it passes the bill, Rajya Sabha, they cannot reject it. If Lok Sabha passes, they cannot amend it. If Lok Sabha passes, they cannot stay on it only for 14 days. After that, it will be deemed that the bill has been passed by the Rajya Sabha too. And it only requires that it should get passed in the Lok Sabha by the simple majority, and this is also one of the drawback of the Rajya Sabha, that with respect to money bill, Rajya Sabha is very much irrelevant, and when it comes to the government, once they have to pass any bill, they will introduce any bill and frame it. The speaker will frame it as a money bill, and Rajya Sabha's role will end there. So this is with respect to Rajya Sabha, what is its role with the money bill. With respect to what is the role of the president with money bill? Role of the president will say yes. He may give assent, or he may withhold assent. Can he send it back for reconsideration? No, he cannot send it back for the reconsideration. He only can say yes, or he can withhold the assent. He cannot send it back for the reconsideration. Now this is what Article 109 says. Now let us discuss what does Article 110 say. What does Article 110 say? Let's try to discuss that. This is the procedure of the money bill, but we did not understand what money bill is. Money bill is. Let's try to understand that what this money bill is through Article 1010. Article 110 of the Indian Constitution, it defines a money bill. Yeah, Article 110 of Indian Constitution, it defines a money bill, which is a type of bill that deals exclusively with the financial matters. Money bill, what it deals with? It deals with the financial matters. Money bill always exclusively deals with the financial matters, which include it may include taxation, for example, imposition, abolition, remission, alteration or regulation of any tax. If the government has to impose any tax, they have to abolish any tax, they have to go for the alteration or regulation. They will it will be introduced as the this bill will be introduced as a money bill. Then second, it is guarantees and borrowing and guarantees. Regulation of borrowing money or giving guarantees by the government of India. If such bill is introduced, it would be introduced as money bill. Then what is its relationship with the Consolidated Fund of India? Consolidated Fund. Custody of the Consolidated Fund or Contingency Fund of India. If any such bill is introduced, including payment and withdrawal of the money, it would be introduced as a money bill. Also the public accounts, public accounts fund, it would be money bill. Then appropriation of money out of the Consolidated Fund of India, it would be deemed as money bill. Expenditure, declaring expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India or increasing such expenditure, with respect to the expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. We have the consolidated Fund of India. What is this Consolidated Fund of India? This Consolidated Fund of India and the Public Accounts Fund of India and Public Accounts Fund of India, they are both the constitutional funds. They are mentioned in the constitutional. They are constitutional funds. And the Contingency Fund of India, it is not a constitutional fund. It does not enjoy the constitutional status, but it enjoys the statutory status. Contingency Fund of India, Contingency Fund, it enjoys the what does it enjoy? It enjoys the statutory status because it is Parliament had created this fund. Under Article 267, Parliament has the authority to create such fund, and they had created the Contingency Fund, and it is for the emergency purposes. About Consolidated Fund, whatever the government earns, whatever government raises the money through the taxation, it would be drawn into the Consolidated Fund of India. And Public Accounts Fund, it deals with the scholarships, pensions, what the government has to give, it deals with it. So we were discussing what are the features of the money bill. It deals with the taxation, borrowing and guarantees, Consolidated Fund, custody of the Consolidated Fund, appropriation of money, expenditure and receipt and custody of public money, audits of accounts of the union or states. Then if any bill related to these important terms, related to these important topics, it would be considered as the money bill. So with respect to the Consolidated Fund of India, there are two types of funds. Consolidated Fund of India. One is expenditure made. And another is charged. For in the charged expenditure charged. In the expenditure charges, here are salaries, for example, for the president, vice president, controller and auditor general of India, CAG, judges, CJI. For their salaries, they are charged from the Consolidated Fund of India. They cannot be voted upon. Their salaries cannot be voted upon because these are the independent posts. And with respect to expenditure made, here you need, if you want to take money from it, expenditure made, you need Parliament's approval. Here. And here in the charged expenditure charged, here no approval of the parliament is needed. Here parliament has to do nothing. In the expenditure made, in the charged expenditure, in the expenditure charged, parliament does not play its role. In the expenditure made, parliament's approval is very much necessary. For example, appropriation of bills. And also with respect to this, here if you have to the salary of the chief election commission and election commissioners, chief election commissioner and the election commissioners, it is, it is made, it is their salary, it is not charged, but each time there would be the there would be the bill will be introduced and the parliament will decide their salaries. So for the election commission of India and commissioner of for the chief election commissioner and election commissioners, their salaries are not charged from the consolidated fund of India, but their salaries are expenditure made from the consolidated fund of India, and it is by the permission of the parliament. So the bill will be introduced in the parliament with respect to that, and that bill would be the money bill. For example, you will have to you will have to decide about the salaries of whom, election commission or chief election commissioner, and that bill will be introduced as the money bill. And also we discussed what are the key features, and there is also one 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 clause of it, which is article 110G, which says any matter included to any of the matters specified. So this is the article 110G. So this is where it is being misused. This article is the most times being misused. For example, we know the Aadhaar case, or the privacy case, or the Pottuswamy case. We had discussed about it, how it was misused, how in this case how Aadhaar bill was introduced. It was introduced as a money bill, and the reason was cited article 110G, any matter included incidental to any of the matters specified, which is all the matters specified above. If there is any matter which is incidental to any of the matters specified, then that bill is also called money bill. That bill can be also introduced as the money bill. Now let us discuss what is the case with the Aadhaar. What is the issue with the Aadhaar? Aadhaar, it is a unique 12-digit ID number. Unique 12-digit ID number. It was basically introduced during the tenure of Manmohan Singh. At that time, the BJP in opposition, they very much opposed it. But the Manmohan Singh, he did not introduce it as any any bill. It was an he introduced it through an executive order. There was no amendment to the constitution, or there was no bill proposed for it. So he just introduced it as an executive order. And what was the purpose of that? What was the purpose of the bill? It was their direct benefit transfer. The purpose was the direct benefit transfer. Earlier what used to happen? For example, there would be the pensions for the old age people, or there would be the subsidies, and they will have to go from the center will provide them, from the funds they will provide them, and they will have to go through the various phases till the actual beneficiary will receive it. And when this will be achieved, there would be different, it would be misused. Here there are chances of duplication, there are chances of leakage. There were huge chances of leakage. And once it was said that for every 1 rupee we pay to the people, we lose 0.84 paisas over it. So there was huge leakage and duplication in this regard. So they wanted it should be in a very systematic and centralized manner. So for that they introduced the Aadhaar. This is the 12-digit ID number which everybody will have, and if it linked with their accounts, it will identify who are the actual beneficiaries for whom this scheme is there, and it will avoid duplication. It will avoid what? It will avoid also leakages. For that, they created an authority which is named as the Unique Identification Authority of India. Unique Identification Authority of India, UIDAI, which deals with the which gives the legal backing to the Aadhaar, and it was the Modi government, which introduced the Aadhaar bill as a money bill. They introduced it because it eventually, the intended, incidental purpose. The intended purpose was that the people will give their biometrics so that they will know who are involved in the policies, who are the beneficiaries. But at the same time, it did not, Aadhaar itself directly did not involved with the cash benefit. It does not involve with taking money from the consolidated fund of India or something like that. But what was its intended purpose? Its intended purpose was that it will avoid the leakages, it will avoid the duplication, and once there would be the cash benefit transfer, it would reach to the intended people. So this Aadhaar was introduced. This case went to the, it went to the, there were allegations with respect that why it went to the Supreme Court. For that, first we need to understand what financial bill is. For that, we will need to know what this financial bill is. To understand what was the issue with the Aadhaar being a money bill, for that first we will understand what this financial bill is. What this financial bill is. About financial bill under Article 117. Article 117 of the Indian Constitution deals with the financial bill. It says it can be, this financial bill, it can be introduced in Lok Sabha. It can be only introduced in Lok Sabha, and for that a prior approval of the president is necessary. Then it is sent to the Rajya Sabha. And what are the options with the Rajya Sabha? Rajya Sabha can pass it, Rajya Sabha may reject it, Rajya Sabha may amend it, and may not act on it for 6 months. May not act on it for 6 months. Then it may be sent for the joint sitting. If president decides so. So this is the difference between the money bill. In the money bill, Rajya Sabha has no role. In the financial bill, Rajya Sabha has a role. What is the similarity? In the money bill, if it is only introduced in the Lok Sabha, similarly, financial bill is only introduced in Lok Sabha, and both the bills prior approval of the president is necessary. What will happen if the money bill is not passed? If money bill is not passed in Lok Sabha, what will happen to the Lok Sabha? The Lok Sabha will have to prove the government will have to prove the majority if it will not pass in the Lok Sabha. And what will happen if the financial bill will not pass in the Lok Sabha? Then there is no need to show the majority. They will not have to defend the majority there. So this is the financial bill. If financial bill is defeated, it will not lead to fall of the government. And what is this financial bill under Article 117? It is money bill plus something. And ideally, what is this something? It can be anything. What is this something? It can be related to any office. For example, creating any office for the specific purpose. Your government imposes cess for the specific purpose. For example, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. For that they will, or for example, they brought in the the Aadhaar. The purpose was that, intended purpose was that money should reach to the beneficiaries. For that they created something. They created the unique identification authority of India. So this is that something. That something is that any authority they will create. So ideally, if we will look at the definition of the financial bill, the Aadhaar should fall in the financial bill, but it was introduced as a money bill. So this case went to the Supreme Court under, this case went to the Supreme Court under K.S. Pathusamy versus Union of India, and there were 3 questions which the Supreme Court has to answer with respect to this bill, on which the Supreme Court has to decide with respect to this bill. What were those 3 questions? Let us discuss this here. When the case went to the Supreme Court, 3 questions were there. First, right to privacy. Right to privacy. When we are giving our details with respect to Aadhaar, we are giving our biometrics. So we are being, exposed to everybody, to the government. They will know everything about us. So where does our privacy go? The question was, is privacy the fundamental right? First question. The second question, can it be introduced as a money bill? And third important question was, is it constitutional or not? Is Aadhaar constitutional or not? So with respect to this, the Supreme Court, the first, it was 5 judge bench, but there was a question in front of the Supreme Court that earlier judgment with the right to privacy, it was given by the 8 judge bench, and they highlighted that right to privacy is not a fundamental right. So for that, new bench with higher majority should be there, with higher numbers should be there. So for that, 9 judge bench was created. 9 judge bench was created who will only discuss about the right to privacy, and they decided by the 9-0 verdict that right to privacy is the fundamental right. Then this case went back to the 5 judge bench, and the question was discussed whether it is constitutional or not, and it was upheld that it is constitutional, with the verdict 4-1. And the only judge who did not who rejected this claim, who diverted from the other judges, other 4 judges, he was the Justice Chandrachud. He said that the Aadhaar in itself cannot be the constitutional. So Justice Chandrachud said Aadhaar is not constitutional, but other 4 judges, they were very much in line with it. Then the third question which was to be asked, whether it is a money bill, can it be introduced as a money bill? For that, the Supreme Court said, what a Supreme Court said that here it was made mandatory, and it was also said that here it was made constitutional, and it was also said that this should only be used for the welfare. Supreme Court highlight that it should be only used for the welfare schemes only. It should be only used for the welfare schemes. And for the money bill, can it be introduced as a money bill or not? So for that, the Supreme Court said, let's create a 7-judge bench, and they will see whether it can be introduced as a money bill or not. Till now, this case was in 2017. Till now, no such bench has been created, and nothing has been answered with respect to it. So this is the financial bill. Aadhaar bill, it should have actually been introduced as a money bill, because it contained the features of the money bill as well as something else. And what was that something else? That was the unique identification authority of India. It was created. Ideally, it should have been introduced as a financial bill, but it was not introduced as a financial bill. It was introduced as the money bill. So this is the case history of it. Now with this, let's move to the last type of the bill, which is the financial bill type 2. Let's see what does this financial bill type 2 is about. Financial bill type 2. What is this financial bill type 2? It is same as ordinary bill. It is same as ordinary bill. For this, the president gives president gives approval just before voting. President gives approval just before voting. That means that for the introduction, you don't need to get the approval of the president, but once the voting is to be done, there you have to ask for the approval. Sir, can we go for the voting? And also, under this financial bill, one more feature of it is that withdrawal of money from the consolidated fund of India. Withdrawal of money from the consolidated fund of India. Withdrawal of money from the consolidated fund of India. So this is what happens in the parliament. This is how the bills get passed. These are the different types of bills which are introduced there. The first we discussed ordinary bill. What is that? How it is different? How its procedure is different. Then we discussed money bill. How it is different. Then we discussed the case of Aadhaar. We discussed the financial bill. How is that different? And finally we discussed the financial bill type 2. Now let's move to the another topic, which is called the ordinance. Ordinance making power of the parliament, or the ordinances. Let's discuss that. What is this? Ordinance power of the president. Let's try to understand that. It is Article 123, Article 123 of Indian Constitution, which gives the power to the President to promulgate an ordinance, promulgate an ordinance. So what does it say? It says if the President is satisfied. Here, what are the important points? President is satisfied. Satisfied. Is it President's personal satisfaction? No, it is not his personal satisfaction. If the President is satisfied when, important condition for the ordinance, when either one or both houses of the Parliament are not in session. Either one or both houses are not in session. So let me tell you here, let's make it very much simple. If both the houses are in the session, can President promulgate an ordinance? No. For that, he will prorogue one of the house. That is his power, and it is not unconstitutional. How he can promulgate an ordinance? Either both the houses are absent, or one of the house is absent, there he can promulgate the ordinance. If the President is satisfied, and the satisfaction is not President's personal satisfaction but the Council of Ministers, when either one or both houses of the Parliament are not in session, the President can promulgate an ordinance on all matters on which the Parliament has the power to make laws. Then, on all matters on which the Parliament has the power to make laws. On all matters on which the Parliament has the power to make laws. What does it include? It includes the union list and concurrent list. If any item in the union list or the concurrent list they have to make the law, they can make it. Does it contain the Constitutional Amendment Act? No. For that, he cannot bring an ordinance, and for that he cannot amend the Constitution. What is the necessity of it? Why there is the necessity of the ordinance? What is the necessity of it? Let's discuss the necessity of the ordinance. 2 to 3 years back, whole world witnessed COVID-19, or as the great test of the USA says it, the Chinese virus. Whole world witnessed COVID-19. When COVID-19 was there, Parliament was not there because everybody was secured to death that they should not get infected. Everybody was very much secured of that. So they stayed at home. And hospitals, they were getting filled by the patients. Because we had not prepared for it, we lacked ventilators, we lacked beds, and because of that, the patients, their attendees, they started attacking the paramedical officials, whether OT official would be there, whether surgeons would be there, whether doctors, they would attack them and they will assault them. So definitely there was the need for that. There was a need for a law which should be much stricter, which will in a way end this cruelty against the doctors. So and the Parliament was not in session. Parliament was not there. Legislatures were nowhere. Government was there, but what will they do? They were going to call the legislatures, MPs. They were not picking up the phones. They would not risk their life for this purpose. So what the cabinet decided? They asked the President, sir, please promulgate an ordinance with respect to it. Till the Parliament will come in. So President, he promulgated ordinance that if anything harm will happen to the doctors, if there is any, if there is anything with respect to the, if anything, if doctors are assaulted, they will be punished, and this punishment would be very hard. So in this way, it is the necessity of the time. At sometimes, you would want to bring in the laws very quickly. For that, this option is there. Now we also discussed what would be the age of this ordinance given by the age of the ordinance given by the President. It would be once the Parliament is in session. Once the Parliament is again in session, after that within 6 weeks it will stand. After 6 weeks, if the parliament makes the law, then it will stand. If the parliament decides to not make the law, then it will end. So maximum strength, if you will be asked what is the maximum strength, it would be 6 months, because it is the maximum gap between the two sessions plus 6 weeks. 6 months plus 6 weeks, it comes 7 months and 2 weeks, or we can say 7.5 months is the maximum life of the ordinance. So this is how it survives. And we saw that on laws, ordinance can be made. Why it is not, why ordinance cannot be made through the Constitutional Amendment Act? Why Constitution cannot be amended through the ordinance? Because for that there is very much, it is very much specific that it should be done through the Article 368 of the Indian Constitution, and also under Article 13, 2 and 3, where it mentions that through which ordinances, laws and customs the fundamental rights cannot be amended, and in that the ordinance is also mentioned there. And we also discussed what is its age, how it can be passed. If any of the house is not there, then ordinance can be passed. If both the houses are not there, then the ordinance can be passed. If Lok Sabha is there, Rajya Sabha is not there, ordinance can be passed. If Rajya Sabha is there, Lok Sabha is not there, ordinance can be passed. If both the houses is there, then ordinance cannot be passed. We also discussed the president cannot promulgate the ordinance when both the houses are in session. We discussed that. Now there is a question which I highlight, that suppose the Council of Ministers, they want to they want president to promulgate an ordinance. For that both the houses are in session. For that, can Council of Ministers ask president to prorogue one of the house and then promulgate an ordinance? Yes, 100% he can do it, and it is very much constitutional. It is not fraud on the Constitution. Maximum validity, we also discussed that. So with this we complete our today's discussion. As I told you, with ordinance making power, same goes with the president, governor's ordinance making power. But here is a question with respect to the ordinance Raj. What they will do, they will promulgate an ordinance. It will remain there for 7.5 months, and after it ends, then they will again promulgate another ordinance, and that will remain there 7.5 months. In this way they will continuously promulgate the ordinance. So this went to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that about the republication. Supreme Court said republication of an ordinance without placing it on the floor of the legislature is committing fraud on the Constitution. Supreme Court made it very much clear. And also the Supreme Court said in the Cooper's case that ordinance, it is liable to judicial review. Ordinance making power or ordinances, they are liable to the judicial review. With this, I hope you had understood today's discussion. It is very much, I had told you, these topics are very much conceptual, these are very much factual based. You need to understand them, you need to remember them, and you need to revise them. So please do make the notes, and if there is any confusion, do write in the comments. We are here to help you. And also with respect to money bill, one thing I forget to mention you. No, sorry, with respect to ordinary bill, one thing which I forget to mention you, all the ordinary bills are passed by simple majority, but there is an exception. What is that exception? Exception is a bill under Article 3, a bill which is passed under Article 3, that should be passed. For that, there is exception. It should be passed by, for that there is the prior approval of the president is important. Prior approval of the president is important. This is the only exception to it. So with this, we complete our today's discussion. I hope you would have liked it. You would share it with your friends, and I definitely hope you would subscribe the channel. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.